afternoon, everyone. So today, firstly, I'm going to start with a scenario that we are all quite familiar with. It's Monday morning, we're in a coordination meeting, we discuss 40 to 50 issues, we generate a clash report, somebody does the minutes, comments are made on drawings, reviews are issued, emails are sent, and then a week later, we still struggle with the same question. Is the project actually becoming better coordinated, or are we just creating busy work? And this is the gap that I want to touch on today. BIM has given us better models, better visualizations, and more connected ways of working, but producing a model should not be the final measure of what BIM is. But before I get into that, I'm going to start off by introducing myself. So my name is Atlegang Molefe. I work at Moderna AEC and Infrastructure, and my work sits at the intersection of BIM, digital delivery, and data operations. And in practical terms, this means that I'm interested in what goes on before, during, and after the actual BIM model. I care about how do we take information from coordination activity, issue records, project workflows, and turn that into insights that are actually usable beyond just the model. So my focus is not simply on building dashboards for the sake of having dashboards. My focus is on creating visibility. My focus is, can we see where the risks are? Can we see where the disciplines are struggling? Can we see whether issues are being addressed in an appropriate time? Or can we see whether information is actually helping us? Can we see whether we have enough information to be able to use this post-handover? So now this brings us to models as measurable outcomes. So the central idea is that BIM should take us from models to measurable outcomes, information that we can actually use. Over the next few minutes, I want to take my time to answer 3 questions. The first being is what BIM success actually looks like. Right? The second is, how does normal coordination activity become useful now for project data? And then thirdly, what should we be measuring if we want BIM to improve our actual project delivery? The objective is not to introduce another software. I know we've been talking about software and having to access this, have access to that, having everybody onboarded, but I want us to actually focus on the data that we're currently producing, because the fact of the matter is we are actually producing this data. This data is there, as it has been mentioned throughout the day. It is there, it's just a matter of it being fragmented. It's all in silos. So, like I mentioned earlier, traditionally, BIM has been judged by deliverables, right? And these deliverables is a 3D model produced, right? Did every discipline submit its model? Was the model issued at the correct milestone? And also, did we actually meet the delivery date? And while these things are important, we still need the model and we still need discipline information. However, those are just production measures. They tell us that something was delivered. They do not actually tell us whether the project is performing well. A project can have a completed model and still have unresolved design risks. A model can meet a model submission, right? A model can meet submission. A model can tell us that all these disciplines actually submitted for the deadline, but it does not necessarily carry the unresolved issues that need to be addressed. Yes, we made our productivity deliverable. However, when we actually take a look at the model post that, then we see that there's still so much data that's actually missing from our models. There's still so much data that's missing from our documents, from our schedules. And that is not a deliverable that I want to focus on for today's talk. The deliverable I want to focus on is the shift that we need to be making. We need to be making the shift from looking at BIM as a 3D deliverable. We need to stop looking at BIM as just a federated model. That is not how we measure BIM success. That is not how we measure better coordination. So the shift on the right hand is therefore to treat the model as a performance data source. Instead of only asking why was the model produced, we need to start asking, is coordination improving? We need to start asking, are issues being resolved faster? Are responsibilities clear? Is the information becoming more complete as the project actually progresses? And are we becoming more ready for handover as a whole team? The model does remain a deliverable, but it also becomes a source of existence for how we're about to measure the project performance. So every day, our project teams create useful information. We produce clash reports, we raise issues, we write review comments, we respond to RFIs, we approve submissions. We also publish new models continuously. We record this information for handover. The problem is not usually that we don't have the data. The problem is that the data is disconnected. So one part is sitting in a clash report, another part is sitting in minute meetings, another is in an email, another is on a mocked up drawing, and then another is in a common data environment while a spreadsheet sits on someone's laptop or PC. And when that information is fragmented, the project loses visibility. We may know that an issue exists, but we don't know whether it's overdue or not. We may know that an issue or a clash was assigned to someone, but we don't know if this person has actually taken accountability or responsibility for that clash. We may know that a model was republished, but not whether the republish actually solved the issue or the clash that was currently existing that needed to be addressed. So the coordination activity does create evidence, but the evidence only becomes valuable when it is captured and it is structured and it is clean and it's connected. And that is the difference between merely producing a 3D model or a federated model for coordination and actually measuring what these models are telling us, actually measuring the activity. So we often describe BIM as an intelligent 3D model, but I want to place more emphasis on the information part of BIM, right? So every model object can function as its own data record. So what I like to do is I like to imagine that a BIM model is something that can be a standalone model that can be used by every single discipline, every single industry, as long as all that information is there and it's structured in a way that is it's coherent and it's understandable by everybody on the project team. So a wall is not only geometry. A wall can have a type, it can have a location, it can have a fire rating, a material, a responsible discipline, a construction and a revision history. And the same can be said for a mechanical unit. It is not only an object placed in a ceiling, it can be connected to a system, it can be located in a particular space, it can be assigned an asset ID or asset identifier for later, linked to a manufacturer and eventually connected to a maintenance information delivery plan or for maintenance purposes. A room is not only an enclosed space, it can carry occupancy, area, department, finish, asset, and also performance information. So when that information is structured together consistently, we can then analyze the model by element, by system, by discipline, location, as well as by parameter completeness. This gives us control because now we know exactly what each element is, we know exactly the asset ID, we know exactly when it needs to be maintained, we know exactly when it was built, we know exactly when it needs to be replaced, and we also know exactly the cost. We also know how long the lead time it takes for this object to actually be delivered to site. We actually know how long it's going to take for us to actually erect this thing on site. And what this does is it provides us insight in terms of managing our project, because when we have all this data, we can actually track the trends. If we know that an issue has arisen and it has not been addressed because no one has taken accountability for it, we understand that we can't go to site unless this has resolved. And what this is going to do, it's going to prolong our project deadlines or our project timelines. What this is actually going to do, it's going to increase our overheads because now we need to pay for more laborer time, we need to pay for more space. So when we identify which zones carry the most risk from the data that we have, we can see where required information is missing. We can compare versions, we can track whether an object has been moved from design to review, to approval, to installation, and eventually to handover. But more data does not necessarily always mean better BIM. The data must be relevant, it must be consistent, it must be named properly, it must be governed, as has been mentioned throughout today. So now the BIM loop, the activity from coordination to project intelligence. It begins when a model is published. The published model enters a coordination review, either through model federation, visual review, automated clash detection, or a combination of all of these methods. During the review, a clash, omission, or information issue has been identified, but identification alone does not improve the project. The issue must be assigned to a specific owner. It needs a discipline, it needs a location, it needs a due date, a priority, and a clear description of what exactly is expected from said participant to actually resolve this. The responsible team member then updates the design or supplies the missing information that is required. A new model is then published and the issue must be checked again. Was it genuinely resolved? Was it only partially resolved? But did the change create any secondary issue? Where else? And then this status is then tracked. This is the point where many teams lose valuable information. They may close the issue, but they do not retain the history. So what we do at Moderna is we've created a system, apologies before I move forward, we've created a system where we've created an ecosystem where we collect all our data sources and we visualize it as dashboards. So at any given time, you can have a track or a trend of exactly what's going on in either your entire project portfolio as a whole or in any particular project that you're currently working on. And you can see the trend, you can see the delays, you can see the issues and the clashes that are causing risk delays, that are causing project delays, that are causing money issues. And that's how we use all this data loop per se to basically identify all the risks that can happen on our project. And I see you standing there. Let me wrap up. I was going to go through a couple of case studies where Moderna has basically facilitated this BIM process by using the data that we do have to deliver better project delivery. But I am just going to move on to a bit more about these dashboards. As you can see here, we've taken all the data that we've gotten from all our different softwares, from all our different apps, from all our different common data environment. As we are a multidisciplinary team, we have people working in Revit, we have people working in Civil 3D. So what we do is we connect all that data, and for us to create measurable outcomes or insights where parties can, or stakeholders can actually make decisions. We track all these things that will have the possibility of affecting our project timelines, that has the possibility of affecting our project overheads. And what we do is we have this as live dashboards that essentially highlight exactly what our project is what's happening in our project, what our teams are doing, if there's something that needs to be resolved proactively. And we can also use this sort of as precedents to look at our portfolio and say, okay, in the past, this is what has occurred, this was the issues that occurred, these are from the parties that occurred, and we can mitigate that before it actually happens. So yes, my talk today is basically BIM is there, but it's a product delivery. The 3D model is a product delivery, but if we focus on the information that we can get from all the parties involved, from all our different softwares and the common data environment, and instead of all this data living individually in all these fragmented spaces, if we can push it together into one CDE, an actual common data environment where all these softwares are visualized, then we can definitely track the outcomes of our project better, and we can actually be proactive about risk management for project delivery. Thank you. I don't know if I have any questions.
I'll be your runner.
Okay.
Yeah. At the risk of taking more time before lunch, shout out to you for the work you're doing, representing us, the younger one. I just saw the one case study that you had. If you could just go through it quickly, because it was that one, Lilongwe Hotel, because it's it's less developed country. Just quite curious what the experience and what you wanted to teach us on that was.
Okay, so essentially what I wanted to highlight by including this case study is even at a magnitude as big as the public sector, coordination was needed specifically for something as huge as this. And in order for this to be facilitated and to work successfully, we had to coordinate different teams that are all located everywhere, all over the place. So it was about making sure that we facilitate digital delivery, making sure that we coordinate the timelines, making sure that all these issues are resolved even post the coordination meeting. So we'd have one big coordination meeting, and if those issues were still not resolved, then we'd have to obviously facilitate the more minute meetings where we can actually discuss to move this forward. This is clashing with this. No one's taking ownership of this. So for that, we actually use the data that we had within the project and use that for clash detection and clash resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you.